This is the digital channel of the General Overseas Service of All India Radio. I am Manoj Mainkar, and in the next half hour, I'll bring to you news updates from India and around the world, awareness videos on coronavirus by Government of India, and a lot more. We'll begin with the news updates.
This is the General Overseas Service of All India Radio. Namaskar. The news snippets. Read by Maria Albina Michael. 19,77,779 people in the country have recovered from COVID-19. In the last 24 hours, a record 57,937 people have recovered. The recovery rate has improved to 73.18%. 8,99,864 tests for COVID-19 were conducted in the country in the past 24 hours. President Ramnath Kovind has accorded assent to the renaming of the HRD ministry as envisaged in the National Education Policy 2020. After the presidential assent, HRD ministry will now be known as Ministry of Education. The JEE and NEET exams will be held as scheduled. The Supreme Court of India dismissed a petition seeking postponement of the exams. The Apex Court observed the academic year cannot be wasted because of COVID-19 pandemic, as the loss of a year could have a detrimental effect on students. The 13th India-UAE Joint Commission meeting on trade, economic and technical cooperation was held virtually. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar and UAE Minister for Foreign Affairs Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan led their respective delegations. India and Nepal have agreed to promote Ramayan circuit in both countries. The two countries also reviewed the progress made on projects like the Motihari-Amlekganj petroleum pipeline. Well-known Hindustani classical vocalist Pandit Jasraj breathed his last at the age of 90 after a cardiac arrest in New Jersey, USA. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has condoled the passing away of Pandit Jasraj. States like UP, Bihar, Andhra Pradesh and Telangana are facing the fury of floods. The disaster management teams of these states are providing aid to the affected people. Flood situation in Bihar continues to remain grim. The US presidential elections is gaining momentum. The 4-day Democratic National Convention began at Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The party's presidential and vice presidential candidates would be speaking at the convention through video conference. Spain, France and Italy have tightened restrictions after a spike in COVID-19 cases. Experts fear a second wave of coronavirus pandemic in these countries. And that is the end of the news snippets. This is the General Overseas Service of All India Radio. We now bring you a special film-based program from our archives.
Watching Ranbir Kapoor in an advertisement for a soft drink, I was struck the other day by an odd coincidence. One generally does not like commercial breaks, and more so when I was watching an old classic on a television channel. But what struck me was that I was watching a film which starred Indian cinema's greatest showman Raj Kapoor with his elder son Randhir in Dharam Karam. Ranbir is the son of Rishi Kapoor, son of Raj Kapoor, whose full name was Ranbir Raj Kapoor. I had gone through a similar experience earlier when the channel telecast Kal Aaj Aur Kal, which starred Prithviraj Kapoor besides Raj and Randhir. Perhaps no other family in Bollywood, or for that matter any other film industry in the world, can claim to be so large with so many generations pursuing the same profession because of an abiding love for cinema. The Kapoor family is generally referred to as the family with up to 4 generations in the film industry, going back to Prithvi Raj Kapoor and his sons Ranbir Raj RK, Shamsher Raj Shammi and Balbir Raj Shashi. Their children Randhir, Rishi, Rajiv, Karan, Kunal and Sanjana, and then their progeny Karishma, Kareena and Ranbir. Raj's brother married film actresses Geeta Bali and Jennifer Kandle respectively, as did his sons Randhir Babita, whose father Hari Shivdasani was also an actor, and Rishi, who married Neetu Singh. His brothers-in-law Premnath and Rajendranath were also in films. Now the family has addition of Saif Ali Khan and his mother Sharmila Tagore after his marriage with Kareena. And few know that Surinder Kapoor, father of Bonnie, married to Sridevi, Anil and Sanjay, the grandfather of Arjun and Sonam, was a cousin of Prithviraj, or the fact that Prithviraj's father, Dewan Biseshwarnath, had done a cameo role in grandson Raj Kapoor's Avara, which became the trendsetter for all early films from RK. Prithviraj, who died in 1972, was awarded the highest national award in cinema, the Dadasaheb Phalke Award, in 1971. His son Raj, who had accepted the award on his late father's behalf a few months after his parents had died, received the same award in 1988. But the films he produced, directed or acted in during his lifetime is monumental, considering the fact that he first appeared as a hero at the age of 23, apart from a short role when he was just 11. He was an actor, director and producer. The veteran was born as Ranbir Raj Kapoor to Prithviraj and Rama Kapoor on December 14, 1924 in the small town Samandru in Peshawar, now in Pakistan. He started schooling in Peshawar, and when his family moved to Bombay in 1929, he continued his education in Calcutta and Bombay's Antonia de Souza High School. He did not complete his schooling but went forth with his first love, films. His father Prithviraj Kapoor was a famous actor in stage as well as in films, who established his own travelling theatre company, the Prithvi Theatres, in 1944. Raj Kapoor's debut as an actor was when he was just 11 years old in the film Inqilab 1935, when he dabbled with all the technical aspects in theatre, as well as he worked in some of the plays such as Diwar and Pathan produced by Prithvi. He worked for Bombay Talkies for some time and became a clapper boy cum assistant to director Kedar Sharma. Kedar, who was often irritated by this clapper boy who would go to a mirror every time he was free to comb his hair, gave Raj Kapoor his first break as a lead actor in his film Neel Kamal 1947 opposite Madhubala. There followed a number of inconsequential films, but his heart was set on becoming a filmmaker in his own right. In 1948, at the age of 24, he became the youngest film director of his time when he set up his own studio. RK Films had made his first feature film Aag, starring himself and Nargis. His next film Barsat 1949 was a passionate romantic theme again, with Nargis was a runaway success. Nargis and Raj duo made a popular lead pair and went on to draw huge crowds. Then followed Avara 1951, a socio-musical romance revolved around the lives of an innocent vagabond, which was simultaneously released in Russia as Bradyaga. The film was a huge success both in India and abroad and could be classified as his greatest hit. Its title song is still popular both in India and the countries of the former Soviet Union. In 1946, at the age of 22, Raj Kapoor married Krishna, his father's first cousin. Krishna was a perfect match for him. The naive lady, who was only 16 when she got married, literally grew with him. She was later known for the perfect parties she hosted for his colleagues and associates. They had 3 sons and 2 daughters, Randhir, Ritu, Rishi, Reema and Rajiv. His sons followed his footsteps and turned into direction and acting. The 50s saw Raj establish himself as a producer-director of great caliber as well as a top actor along with his fellow contemporaries Dilip Kumar and Dev Anand. For more than 15 years, he remained an evergreen hero of Hindi films. It was Mehboob's Andaz 1949 that initiated his rise as a top star, and then his own films stabilized the process. Avara was followed by Shri 420 in 1955, about an innocent villager who gets corrupted when he comes to the city to make a living. Anadi 1959, a story on similar lines of a naive simple hero used by cruel and corrupt society. Jis Desh Mein Ganga Behti Hai 1960, 1960 and Sangam 1964. His maturity as a filmmaker can be seen from the dream sequence in the film Avara as early as 1951, which is among the best dream sequences in Indian cinema. The sequence begins with him turning a criminal on earth, trying to save himself from dragons in hell, and finally reaching heaven with the heroine welcoming him with the song Ghar Aaya Mera Pardesi. The choreography by Simki and music by Shankar Jaikishan on Shailendra's lyrics played a major role in highlighting the importance of the message in this sequence. Early in his films, he adopted a Charlie Chaplinesque style which has never failed to touch the sentimental chord in the viewer. And he retained this till his film Mera Naam Joker. Chori Chori and Jaagte Raho 1956 were his last two films with Nargis as his own lead. This lead pair acted together in 16 films, including 6 of his own productions. These included the 1953 film where Raj actually had the singer Mukesh, whom he described as his voice on screen while singing the song Choti Si Ye Zindagani Re. In 1964, Raj made the film Sangam, which was his second film with Vaijayanti Mala, the first being Nazrana. This film became a trendsetter, not only proved to be a major hit, but also revealed some rare qualities in the filmmaker, who later came to be known as the showman. At a time when the Central Board of Film Certification, then called the Central Board of Film Censors, was strict about showing sensuality in films, Raj proved in film after film, perhaps beginning with Jis Desh Mein Ganga Behti Hai, that he could show sensuality in a manner that did not appear offensive. Apart from this, his films had all the ingredients to make them hits. They had a catchy story with a moralistic or patriotic tone, excellent portrayals, the right amount of emotions, a little bit of comedy, and most importantly, top-notch music. In fact, his ear for good music is related to the fact that he heard a tune when he visited Russia with Aag, used it as the background score in 3 or 4 films including Sangam, and then as a song in his magnum opus Mera Naam Joker in 1970, Jaane Kahan Gaye Wo Din. Interestingly, one of the most popular scenes in Indian cinema is a song from an earlier Raj Kapoor film. A Chaplinesque tramp with holes in his shoes, 2 short pants and a slightly goofy hat skips down a country road and sings Mera Joota Hai Japani, Ye Patloon Englistani, Sar Pe Lal Topi Rusi, Phir Bhi Dil Hai Hindustani. Similarly, it is interesting to note that the Shri 420 song Pyar Hua Ikrar Hua, sung by Lata Mangeshkar and Manna De and picturized on Raj and Nargis, which has the line Phir Bhi Rahengi Nishaniyan, which shows Nargis pointing to 3 children in raincoats, few knowing that the children were Randhir, Rishi and Ritu. His magnum opus and most ambitious project, Mera Naam Joker, about the life of a joker in a circus who faced trials and tribulations even as he made others laugh, took 6 years to complete and was more than 5 hours long. But though it was brilliant in parts, the film failed at the box office and left Raj a very dejected man. However, he was a fighter and came back 3 years later with another trendsetter, Bobby 1973, a teenage love story introducing Dimple Kapadia and his second son Rishi in the romantic lead, which was a phenomenal success. It once again proved that Raj's innate sense of music was very deep, as every song of that film is a hit even today. With Bobby, he began to portray his heroines more sensually in his films. He continued the trend in films like Satyam Shivam Sundaram 1978, starring Zeenat Aman, and Ram Teri Ganga Maili 1985. In between, he made Prem Rog 1982, taking up a widow's cause and encouraging remarriage among them. His last film, completed after his death with shooting in Pakistan by sons Randhir and Rishi, was Hina, an Indo-Pak love story. He acted in more than 65 films and directed 10, including 4 in which he did not act. Though 2 had Rishi, 1 had his brother Shashi and the 4th starred his youngest son Rajiv along with brother Shammi. He produced 18 films, of which 5 did not have him as actor but starred members of the Kapoor clan. Among some of his other memorable films as actor or filmmaker were Barsat, Jaagte Raho, Chori Chori, Phir Subah Hogi, Parvarish, Kanhaiya, 4 Din 4 Raatein, Do Jasoos, Anadi, Chhaliya and Teesri Qasam. Raj Kapoor's last appearance was in Vakil Babu 1982. His last ever acting role was a minor role in a 1984 British made-for-television film, Kim. Kapoor's films identified with the common man and appealed to all sections of the society. Some of his films had a patriotic feel about them. His heroes were mostly pure at heart people who could retain their innocence even in adverse circumstances. His films also tended to send out oblique messages. If Awara showed the conflict of the good and the bad in every human being, Jaagte Raho was among the first to expose the hypocrisy in middle-class society. जिस देश में गंगा बहती है was based on Jayaprakash Narayan's movement to make dacoits surrender arms. Prem Rog dealt with widow remarriage. Aag and Satyam Shivam Sundaram sought to ask whether beauty means physical looks or a pure nature. Kal Aaj or Kal was about generational gap. Ram Teri Ganga Maili attempted to mirror the situation of women in the country, and Hina attempted to show love transcends man-made borders. Raj won many awards during his lifetime. Apart from a number of Filmfare Awards, he won the Grand Prix Award 1957, Padma Bhushan 1971 and Dadasaheb Phalke Award 1987 for lifetime commitment to Indian cinema. In fact, it was during the presentation ceremony of the Dadasaheb Phalke Award on 2nd May 1988 that he got a bad asthmatic attack, forcing then-President R. Venkatraman to come down from the dais to give him the award, after which Raj was rushed to the All India Institute of Medical Sciences. The fighter that he was, he fought his sickness for a whole month but breathed his last on 2nd June, aged 63. Perhaps one message that Raj left after his death remains a favorite even today. Jeena yahan, marna yahan, iske siva jana kahan.
You were listening to a special film-based program from our archives. This program came to you from the General Overseas Service of All India Radio.
COVID-19 continues to spread around the globe. You can help stop COVID-19 by participating in contact tracing. How does contact tracing work? Contact tracing is a system that has been used for decades to stop infectious diseases. A contact is anyone who has had direct physical contact or was within 1 metre for at least 15 minutes with an infected person, even if that person does not have symptoms. This applies to anyone who has had contact from 2 days before a person gets sick until 14 days afterwards, or from the 14 days when an asymptomatic case tested positive. Once you are confirmed as a contact, you will be asked to go into quarantine, which means to separate yourself from others and to monitor your health for any signs of illness. The monitoring ends on the 14th day from your last contact with the person infected with COVID-19. Quarantine can take place in a special facility outside of your home or at home if you can stay separated from family members. Why 14 days of quarantine? It can take from 1 to 14 days from contact with the virus to develop symptoms. During this time, you should stay in quarantine and monitor symptoms and follow instructions given to you if you become symptomatic. Without contact tracing and quarantine, the virus will continue to spread. This leads to more people becoming sick and infecting the most vulnerable. By identifying and limiting contacts of people infected with COVID-19, the virus stops spreading and the community stays safe. To break the chains of transmission, we all need to work together. If you become sick with COVID-19, stay away from others. Follow the recommendations of your medical care provider and share the list of people who you came in close contact with. With your help, we can prevent further spread of the virus and save more people's lives. By acting together, we can break the chains of COVID-19 transmission.
You are with us on the General Overseas Service of All India Radio. We now bring you today's commentary. Hong Kong's new security law is all smoke and mirrors to hide wealth of top CCP bosses. It is scripted by Siddharth Rai, consulting editor, Digital Prasar Bharati. While the Chinese elite, especially the top brass of China's Communist Party leadership, have long been suspected of parking their money and assets in Hong Kong, insulating their financial gains from the mainland and therefore out of the view of the Chinese people, an investigation by the New York Times has confirmed just that. In a recently published report in the NYT titled "Luxury Homes Tie Chinese Communist Elite to Hong Kong's Fate," it has been claimed that relatives of top bosses of the CCP have amassed huge wealth using Hong Kong's financial landscape of international business for their own gains. Close relatives of 3 of the top 4 in the CCP have over $51 million worth investments in luxury real estate in Hong Kong. Chinese President Xi Jinping's close relatives have come under the lens, not for the first time, for their assets in Hong Kong and business dealings with relatives of other top officials of the CCP who own huge assets and investments in Hong Kong. Observers believe that China's new security law imposed with an iron hand in Hong Kong has more to it than just political dimensions. The law is inextricably tied, say experts, with the financial dealings and assets of the communist nobility. The law could protect the families of the party's leaders by stopping the protests that wreaked havoc on the economy or leave them vulnerable by driving down business confidence in the territory, the NYT report opined. Conversely, the global sanctions regime led by the US that has started rolling against China against the new security law that seriously undermines fundamental freedoms in Hong Kong also threatens the business interests of these relatives of the CCP leadership, as HK might lose its global financial status. Therefore, Chinese government's vehement retorts to these sanctions, often bordering on outbursts than diplomatic exhortations, could have had a personal angle too. The NYT report quoted Willie Lam, an adjunct professor of Chinese studies at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. Members of the red aristocracy in China, including the princelings, have made huge investments in Hong Kong. If Hong Kong suddenly loses its financial status, they cannot park their money here. Meanwhile, the NYT investigation revealed that Li Qianqin, the elder daughter of CCP's number 3 leader Li Zhanshu, has deep financial roots in Hong Kong and owns a 4-story house by the beach worth $15 billion. Incidentally, Zhanshu is the chairperson of the Rubber Stamp Parliament of China and was instrumental in swiftly passing the new security law equipping mainland to gag any pro-democracy, anti-Beijing dissent in Hong Kong. Recently, Hong Kong media tycoon and pro-democracy activist Jimmy Lai, who owns Apple Daily, was arrested unceremoniously, and the paper's office, rifled through the Hong Kong police under the new security law, had back in 2017 published, among others, an article on the rapid rise of the Hong Kong financial scene of Li Qianqin's partner Chua Hua Por. According to the NYT, Chi Chiao Chiao, the older sister of Xi Jinping, China's president, started buying properties in Hong Kong as early as 1991. Hong Kong property records show. Her daughter, Zhang Yanan, owns a villa in Repulse Bay, which she bought in 2009 for $19.3 billion and at least 5 other apartments, the city's property and company records indicate. Moreover, one of the authors of the NYT investigation, Mike Forsyth, linked the financial dealings of Xi Jinping's relatives with Li Qianqin's. In a series of tweets in the wake of the article, Forsyth claimed Li Qianqin, Zhangshu's daughter, went on to head China Construction Bank International at 37, an investment banking arm of one of the world's biggest banks, which was state-owned. Ironically, in 2013, as per another article by NYT from 2017, Xi Jinping's relatives ended their business ties with the CCBI. Their stakes were bought by another company, Canghai. After ascending to power, Xi Jinping had led a crusade uncharacteristic of CCP till then against corruption by Xiao Yangkang, CCP leader and China's top security bosses. The NYT investigation, apart from the Li-Qi nexus, also exposed that Wang Xisha, daughter of Wang Yang, who hogs the number 4 slot in CCP, bought a $2 million home in Hong Kong in 2010. The publication cited the city property records for the purpose. That was today's commentary. Hong Kong's new security law is all smoke and mirrors to hide wealth of top CCP bosses. It was scripted by Siddharth Rai, consulting editor at Digital, Prasar Bharati. This broadcast came to you from the General Overseas Service of All India Radio.
This broadcast came to you from the digital channel of the General Overseas Service of All India Radio.